Thanks, YouTube. Let's try that again. So anyway, as I was saying, when it came to Metal Gear Solid, the reason why I started with what I started with, which was about fun and how it's not subjective, how there's an actual definition to it that's universally acceptable, is because when it comes to Metal Gear Solid Delta, the game that was just re-released by Konami, who insist on only focusing on this and Silent Hill, which are their two worst series, what it comes down to is the gameplay is about 4.5 to 5 hours of, those stealth missions in every Sony Western exclusive that nobody likes? Just imagine a game like that. That is your gameplay. And the cutscenes are moronic. They're over the top. They're not entertaining. They're not interesting. And they don't tell a good story at all, because what is the plot? What's the plot? To bring peace to the planet? Globalization and all that? Okay, whatever. But it's not discernible, even with Hideo Kojima's ridiculous imagery that he has to bash you over the head with a hammer for you to understand. It also has a character that I would expect would be considered woke, but I don't know. It was before 2016, so maybe not. In The Boss, who is sort of like the mother of all this. Whatever the case, the story is that you go back in time. Now you are Naked Snake, who is Big Boss's first moniker. So it's Big Boss. You're playing as him now. Once more, we're going to try to do the Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3 thing where we make a villain into a tragic hero. The only difference is Anakin Skywalker was always meant to be a tragic hero, and Big Boss was just turned into one. So this guy that was the type who wanted to laugh maniacally and use Metal Gears for the sole purpose of killing anyone that got in his way and didn't share his views, and challenged his own clone son with an aerosol can and a blowtorch. I mean, that's what his son could only use. He could use whatever he wanted. This guy now is just misunderstood. And really what it comes down to is that his mentor, this woman who, in a pseudo-reality, was during World War II, storming the beaches of Normandy, killing people with her bare hands, more or less, coming up with her own martial art and all this other shit, flying in space and everything. None of that would have happened. The United States did not allow women even in the armed forces outside being hot nurses, more or less. That's just the way it is, or secretaries. But in this case, in this reality, that's what happened, and she was the first to fly in space. And the reason why I find this ridiculous is because Konami, and really when you look at this in Silent Hill, you can blame Konami for the storytelling, more or less. Now, when it comes to Death Stranding, yeah, that's Hideo Kojima's fucking insanity. But when it comes to Konami, they're the ones that really greenlight these projects, and I'm sure that they have their own writers with Hideo Kojima, who, by the way, himself laughed when people asked him about where the stories were going, because he said, I just focus on mechanics first, then we worry about story later. I'm like, do you ever worry about it? Because it doesn't look like you're paying attention. Twists are nice if there is purpose to them. If the story is going one way and then the plot takes a turn, that's a little bit more interesting. Aha moments for the sake of aha moments, which, look, anime does it all the time, but that's more for kids and teenagers. This was supposed to be taken seriously for mature adults, more or less. Aha moments for the sake of aha moments, like Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, where you find out the obvious that the character you were using wasn't really the Big Boss, because throughout the entirety of the game, and that stupid-ass storyline, you're not only being called boss, but you're sharing memories with people that apparently see you as the actual John, Naked Snake, Big Boss. You are acting like you were this person, and it turns out you weren't. Well, in this one, you are him, and you have to go through this circle of freaks that she's hanging out with, the boss, when you find out that she was really working for the United States and these patriots or whatever that became an artificial intelligence in the second game. Totally different scenario, totally different story. And really, she just wants peace. She doesn't want anyone to take over anything. Oh, and by the way, they had a Metal Gear back then in the 1960s, and nobody knows what they are in the 1990s. There was also a double agent that was there specifically for sex appeal. They had this stupid-ass Austin Powers the Spy That Shagged Me scenario where they were innuendo. There was all this sexual innuendo being implied through their actions, despite the fact that this bitch is rubbing her ass and tits all over the guy from the moment she meets him. And Ava, whatever her name is, because they all have to be called Ava, Ava, wherever in these anime type games. She has a string bikini underneath her military jumpsuit that she just walks around in the whole game because string bikinis weren't invented until the 1970s. I looked it up a while ago. So we're talking about a reality where this is true. And then they try to connect these acts to what goes on throughout the course of the Cold War between China, the United States, and Russia, as if this cycle of events led to real events. So it's non-fictional fiction. And people try to make it seem as if it was just being facetious. No, you weren't being facetious. Not only that, the cutscenes are way too fucking long, and they're moronic. They're for kids that don't know anything about storytelling or writing. So obviously, the internet and these video game journalists turn this series, and especially this game, into the greatest game ever made, or one of them anyway, which then leads to Konami years later re-releasing it. Now listen, the problem isn't re-releases, okay? Let me explain this to you. Video games are great when they're fun. They're great when they have mechanical hooks that keep you invested, that want you to come back for more. Video games are great when they're Nintendo games, when they're Capcom games, when they're just about the fun. Now, Capcom is a company that likes to harbor shysters who keep making you pay for things you shouldn't need to, but you eventually do, and it's way too much money. And it's funny because people said Nintendo was greedy these past few months because they had the audacity to improve their hardware on a console concept that nobody could repeat. PlayStation 6 is just probably going to streamline, and if it is another Switch, well, you don't have the games, and it's probably going to cost $800. The Xbox handheld is going to cost $800. And that's another thing, too, is that I'm pretty sure it's not going to be another Switch because of the fact everybody keeps making the Switch 2 out to be just a handheld. It's not. It's a hybrid. But that's another subject for another time. These are great games because they're fun. Metroid, as I said before, my camera just died for whatever reason, was a tremendous game. However, Metroid Zero Mission is a better game. When you have better hardware and you have better software and you have stronger engines that can do more, that can give you more of a great idea and polish it up, make it look more realistic or even better. You get to see Zero Suit Samus in all her Game Boy Advance glory. It's fantastic. And on top of that, there's an extra bit of connective story tissue where the Chozo have her prove herself when she loses her suit and everything, she loses her ship or whatever, to the pirates, where she becomes like her truly empowered self with the gravity suit, with the screw attack and all that other stuff. It's a nice moment. I played through the game. It's very difficult, but at the same time, it's great. It's just great. Resident Evil, the original one, was a tremendous title. Sold tons of PlayStations. Sold me one. It was different. It was innovative. It was tremendous. But the re-release was better. There are so many games like that that when you're talking about from generations before to now, contemporizing them makes them better because you can do more with it. There were probably scenes or areas or whatever that you couldn't put together before that you can now. So I love re-releases when they're done right for games that deserve them. Just giving Metal Gear Solid Delta a modern Unreal Engine 5 polish is not necessary. The game was all about how it looked like real people back in the old days. Selling it again for $60 or whatever dollars, just because it looks better, it's still a shit game. And I can say it's a shit game because the mechanics are boring and repetitive. The boss fights are all you really have, and they're not really all that great, especially the one with the end where they tried to sell it like it was watching Yoda with a lightsaber for the first time in episode 2, because he keeps sleeping in this wheelchair. They keep wheeling him around saying he's getting ready for his last battle. And what does he do with this last battle? His eyes bug out of his head, and he tries to snipe you. And every time you get close to him, he throws a smoke bomb and runs away. Ooh, that was well worth the wait. And that boss fight can take you a second. It could take you 5 hours. This is good gameplay. This is a good game with that dumbass storyline. Whatever, man. So when it came to that, I was never going to play a Metal Gear Solid game anyway, and it's not coming out on the Switch 2 that I'm aware of right now. So whatever. You can do what you want with that. The second one I was talking about was Star Wars Outlaws on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, it had already been released about a year ago. It already got nailed for its typical UbiSoft rushed issues with polish and crashes and all this other shit like bugs and whatever. So when people were looking at the initial, not even release, but the 1 month from being released, or 2 weeks officially, but 1 month before being released, version on the Switch 2, once again, the so-called journalists and all these fanboys of PlayStation, PC, they were freaking the fuck out. Because apparently the initial report was, it doesn't look good. The frame rates drop, the textures aren't there, whatever. Now, I'm not sure what 4K and 120 frames per second means to you, but when I hear that the Switch 2 can handle that, I don't think ray tracing or some kind of rock being seen in full detail, I don't think that's a problem anymore. And I don't think playing Elden Ring or this game is an issue because it's capable of 4K 120 frames per second. When it's not docked, when it's portable, it's capable of 1080, full HD, 3D, I think, not even 3D, but, like visually intense graphics at 60 frames per second. So there's nothing wrong with the hardware. So clearly there was something wrong with the software. Well, apparently the initial reaction was overdone and overblown, like how great Metal Gear Solid and all these other stupid-ass Silent Hill story, The Last of Us story series go. And it plays perfectly fine with a 1-day patch, a day 1 patch. So what that means is as the game is being played more, Ubisoft will do what Ubisoft always does and give you more patches and clean it up. So all those different textures and everything that aren't coming out now, I'm sure they will soon. There was nothing really there. Now, since it's on the Switch 2, will I play it? Of course not, because fucking Disney Star Wars sucks ass. It can go take a fucking walk over short pier, rot in hell, and stay there forever. Because I don't care about Disney's attempts at fan service from a guy's creation that they know nothing about. And I didn't think of ever playing a game with an anorexic woman, because God forbid Western-based games have women with tits and hips. Can't have that. That might offend somebody. I wasn't looking to play her with her tattoo because, tattoos are prominent all over the Star Wars universe. I do remember there being one character with a tattoo in episode 2, Dex, who was the guy that owned the diner that Obi-Wan went to when he asked about the Camino saber dart. Other than that, there was nothing about anybody getting ink on themselves in that universe. So to see it now is clearly you're trying to relate to people that you think look like they play video games. Clearly you're doing that. And then you take your name and the street you grew up with or grew up in, and you throw it on one of these 1999 websites where it gives you your Star Wars name. So instead of stuff like Han Solo or Luke Skywalker or Anakin Skywalker or Leia Organa or even like Kit Fisto or Mace Windu or even Obi-Wan Kenobi or Qui-Gon Jinn, names that you may or may not see in one form or another when you live your daily life. No, we got Snitch Snurfnink and Kez Gulzlok and all this other stupid sounding words that have no business being considered names. But hey, it's Star Wars. That's what everyone's name is like. I have no interest in this game. I don't care if it came out in the Switch 2. I don't care if it comes out in the Switch 1. I have no interest whatsoever. If you want to play Star Wars Outlaws and a Ubisoft game, I just find it hilarious how once again we're trying to figure out what happened between episodes 3 and 4. You know what happened? The Empire used their regional governors to take full control over the old Republic. They rooted out all the stragglers of the, I don't want to say rebellion, but at that point it was pretty much going to be a rebellion. And they built a Death Star. They didn't attack Kashyyyk and the last remaining members of the Kashyyyk tribe that Chewbacca was a part of. Darth Vader didn't find a kid down there. There wasn't anybody that grabbed a lightsaber and became a Jedi Knight overnight. There wasn't a guy that was friends with Han Solo that was going through Ord Mendel and all these other places. Like, none of these things happened, okay? Because George Lucas never said that. So trying to figure out what you did or what was going on between that is one of Disney's biggest fascinations. I'm sick of them. I'm sick of them trying to make Star Wars, and I'm sick of this concept. It needs to go. And the idea with they should have made just everything from the expanded universe. Well, considering the creator of Star Wars said that the expanded universe isn't his universe and it needs to be ignored, no, you needed to go to George Lucas and ask, where are we going from here? Because that was the idea when he originally sold the screenplays to 789 to Disney and the rights to make them. That was the original idea. So everything that they're doing now with the video games and whatever, he's not green-lighting him, so you can shove it up your ass, Disney. I don't give a fuck about them. The last one is Silksong, Hollow Knight Silksong. I know that it crashed the internet. I know there are lots of people that were looking forward to it. I was not one of them. I don't care. I don't know why, and I can't tell you with full confidence as to how this game doesn't interest me. The original one didn't interest me. I love Metroidvanias. And I like games that kind of emulate Dark Souls without trying to be too much like Dark Souls, where it's just hard for the sake of hard. That's what she said. But I'm just not into this one, man. I don't know why. And people could say, well, you're not playing it. There are games like Civilization 6 or any of the Fire Emblem games that I can watch other people play and go, I'd like to get that, and I do. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, I reviewed it, I played through it, and I'm glad I got it because I was watching somebody else play it, and I said, yeah, I mean, saying that would be the equivalent of saying, well, a trailer doesn't mean anything. Let's not have trailers then, because you see a movie or you see a game, you see the trailer, you get excited. So if I'm watching somebody play the entire game and it's not exciting me, so I'm glad that it came out. I was hearing about it for years. And I'm happy for everybody that helped break everybody's online shop in order to get it quick when it was released. But I don't see it. I cannot get into it. I'm sorry. Well, I didn't want this to get cut in between, but we're going to do this again next week. As I've said on Friday, I'm trying to get one of my friends to jump on with me. But as of now, what am I doing with my gaming channel? I'm still playing through Civilization 7. I had a bad loss with Trunk Track, and it was a bad loss in the sense that I gave up. I was being overwhelmed by too many stronger opponents. I stopped it. I'm using Ashoke now. We're going to be using Ashoke, and then we're going to do Frederick, 2 of them. And we're going to do Himiko, 2 of them. Or maybe I won't do Frederick, but not yet. Maybe I'll do Himiko first because she was DLC from the Founders Pack. And then, of course, Napoleon, who I've never won with. So it's going to be interesting. But as of now, I'll see you next week.